we discuss the theme of patriarchy and American memory in the play Osage County in this video lecture. The disappearance of the Western clan's patriarch Beverly structures the play's first act, and the void left in the wake of his loss forms both the logistical and emotional framework of the rest of the action. Beverly becomes an almost mythical figure as the drama unfolds, an archetype symbolic of the death of a vision of America that no longer exists. Set in mid-2007, a crucial moment in American patriotism and paranoia, August Osage County uses Beverly's death to stimulate the end of a certain era in American life, to suggest the irrelevance of the greatest generation, those who grew up in the Depression and went on to fight in World War II, and to reject that the idea that America's most important years are in its past. Beverly only appears in the play's prologue as he interviews Jonah Moneveta for a job as a living housekeeper. During this particular introduction to the Western home, Beverly declares he will soon depart from the world due to his inability to live the quintessential American life he always believed he would have. This is established through a number of things Beverly says, and by his metaphorical passing of the baton to Joanna, a Native American woman. Beverly begins the interview by quoting memorably bleak lines from T.S. Eliot. Life is very long, and John Berryman, the world is gradually becoming a place where I do not care to be anymore. His affinity with the damaged is evidence of his own exhaustion and brokenness. Beverly admits he is not entirely comfortable with bringing in help, but explains he is joining the ranks of the hiring class, a class he seems from his language to view derisively because his and Violet's addictions have become so overwhelming that they can no longer participate in the maintenance of traditional American routine. The scene ends as Joanna accepts the job and Beverly gives her a volume of T.S. Eliot to read, telling her it's not a job requirement but merely for her own enjoyment. This moment in which Beverly metaphorically renounces his role as patriarch and puts the care of himself and his wife in the hands of a native woman from a younger generation is not only symbolic of Beverly's preparation for his own literal demise, but of his preparation for the figurative demise of the control his generation has exerted over America. In lending her the volume of Eliot, is making one final half-hearted attempt to pass on the wisdom of his own generation. The irony in this gesture is that Eliot, though born in America, defected to England at an early age and renounced his American passport. A member of the generation before Beverly's, Eliot had already seen the fruitlessness and death in American culture. As the play progresses, Joanna's presence is seen by many members of the Western clan as disorienting. More than anything, they simply aren't sure how to talk or treat Joanna. Their reactions reveal an anxiety about the presence of otherness in their lives and symbolize on a larger scale American anxieties about a more inclusive future which attempts to atone for the mistakes of generations past, even those of the so-called greatest generation to which Violet, Beverly, Mattie Fay, and Charlie all belong. Violet is particularly baffled by Jonah's presence. She repeatedly points out Jonah's otherness by referring to her as an Indian, despite Barbara's attempts to clue her mother in as to the politically correct nomenclature. Violet keeps referring to the Indian in her house and making pointed references to Jonah's status as an outsider. When Karen later refers to the old fort in the backyard where she and her sisters used to play cowboys and Indians, Violet angrily makes a point of correcting Karen, urging her to revise her sentence, "You played cowboys and Native Americans." The correction is really a pointed attack on Barbara. Violet is angry with her eldest daughter for her progressiveness that to Violet signals the end of her generation's era of power and the end of a way of life that blatantly privileged white American while paying little attention to the needs of marginalized populations. Donna's status as live-in housekeeper has already made Violet feel useless, and watching her family privilege Jonah's comfort and sense of belonging over Violet's own is too much for her to bear. At the end of the play, Violet has been forsaken by her husband and her daughters and has no company but her pills and Jonah, the Indian who lives in her attic. Violet crawls up the stairs to Jonah's room where she lays her head in Jonah's lap and begs for comfort. In one way, the play has been about Violet's struggle against the forces of addiction and abuse. In another, more symbolic sense, it has become about Beverly's and Violet's journey towards the acceptance of the fact that their generation's power is coming to a close and that a new era of hired help, a woman whose peoples have systematically been taken advantage of and decimated by white Americans, is symbolic of the wounds between oppressed and oppressor that may never heal. As Jonah cradles a quietly weeping Violet, who is herself repeating over and over again, "And then you are gone, and then you are gone," Jonah invokes T.S. Eliot, saying, "This is the way the world ends over and over." Jonah is quoting an American poet who renounced his ties to America and who foretold of the world ending with a whimper. Indeed, Violet's world is ending to the soundtrack of her own pitiful whimpers. As his characters wrestle with political correctness, the death of their dreams and aspirations, and the demands of modern American life, Letts uses the canvas of August Osage County to examine the anxieties unique to a world in flux. The symbolic death of the Western Patriarch sets the stage for the play larger than symbolic tilt, the death of the received social order of contemporary America. With this, we end the discussion of this theme, and in the next video lecture, we discuss the theme of addiction in the play August Osage County by Tracy. Thank you very much.